Win big in 2021 with rotoballer.com's MMA Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate? Rotoballer's premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. For a limited time, get that premium pass for 50% off. Use my promo code Knuckler as an RA Dickey for another 10% discount. So, folks, with the holidays right around the corner, visit rotoballer.com/radio, sign up today, and start rotoballing like a boss. And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove with Rotoballer's official MMA podcast, Tap That. We are having another interlude episode, and with me today, another very special guest. He is coming off a huge round one knockout win in his bare knuckle FC debut back just 11 days ago at BKFC Fight Night, New York. Matt Babyface Phillips. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me today.
It's very exciting to have you here, Matt. I've never had anybody from BKFC on the show before, and what a great time to have you. I mean, 11 days after that big victory. Describe at least some of your emotions in the aftermath now that you've had a little bit more time to process the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of settled back down now. I'm back in the gym. You know, life's back on the normal routine, but it was a real different experience than I've ever had before. The whole weekend, you know, it felt like it was a little bit of a dream. You know, it was definitely a dream come true to fight on that big of a stage. And, you know, I'll be continuing to fight on that big of a stage from here on out. That was my, you know, my way of putting my foot in the door when we kind of kicked the door down. So it was an epic time. And I had a lot of ups and downs coming into the fight, you know. Nobody knew this but my team, but like I signed my fight in September and obviously to fight in November. And then a couple weeks later, I got COVID really bad. Oh. And, you know, I was down for the count for 2 weeks, probably about 10 days where I didn't leave bed. I didn't do anything. And I was real worried about the fight, but you know, there was no way I was going to let that opportunity slip out of my hands, and kind of had some people that, you know, were important in my life step out of my life in that amount of time. So I had a lot of ups and downs leading up to the fight, but, you know, they say there's a lot of downs before there's the ups. So here we are now. It was an excellent victory. Bare Knuckle treated me very well, and I had the time of my life and the most high of all highs that I've ever had. So it was excellent.
So, folks, a few background details. Matt Babyface Phillips fighting out of Elmira, New York, affiliated with Team Bomb Squad. And you're only 24 years old. And that is pretty peculiar to see on a bare knuckle card because, you know, on BKFC, you see people that fight, you know, a lot longer than they do in the other more traditional combat sports. And so you've taken on like the status of like BKFC prospect. So how did like BKFC, how did that opportunity like come about in the first place?
Well, so, you know, bare knuckle, they have tryouts that they host, you know, all over the world at this point. And they look for the best fighters, the craziest fighters, the toughest fighters. They look for those things. Fortunately for myself, I didn't come up through the tryout process. My opponent did. And my opponent just so happened to be from the Buffalo area, not far from Salamanca where the show was at. I'm from Elmira, not far from where the show is at. And as far as, you know, the pros go in New York State, you know, I was kind of leading the way in on the regional scenes. I, you know, shut everybody out. And they called me. They said, hey, we got this guy. We're making matchups. You know, BKFC's coming to New York. We want you on it. We got a challenge for you. He made it through our tryout system, and here we go. Here's your debut if you want it. And there was no way I was going to turn that down. You know, it felt like I was fighting right at home when I fought out there because of all the support I had from Elmira, Horseheads area that traveled out to Salamanca. It's not too far, about 2 hours. So felt like I was fighting at home, just on the bigger stage.
And it's interesting. I think that might have been the only New York versus New York fight on the card of BKFC Fight Night New York.
I think so.
So, I mean, obviously the fight ended with a spectacular first round knockout. And so it might be hard to evaluate, what you take away from it technically, but now in the aftermath, what are some things that you're happy about? I mean, the way they went, obviously, other than the result. And did you notice anything that you weren't as happy with?
I haven't dwelled on the things that I wasn't as happy about, because it was such a quick finish. It was, there was 15 seconds in the fight, and the guy's on the ground. That's what we said. They interviewed us before the fights, and they kind of let hey, this is, staying in this room. Nobody else is going to hear this. This is for, the commentators' knowledge, the promotion's knowledge. What do you think your best punches are? How do you see the fight going? I let those guys know that, hey, I'm here for anybody. This guy can fall out tonight, and they need me to step up to 175 tomorrow. We're here to go with whoever you got. But if this guy, if he wants to come out and he wants to be real aggressive, then it's going to be an early night for him, because, my check hook is usually on the money. And that's what I ended up catching him with when he came at me super, super hard. So we told him, if he comes out real hard, he's probably going to run into something big. And if he doesn't come out real hard and we set the tone early, we're probably going to eat his body up and end up finishing him with a right hand to the head. Somewhere along those lines, that's what we thought was going to happen. And that's what happened. He came out real hard. There was a point right when we first exchanged. I hit him with I think I hit him with a right hook to the body. And then we both threw big right hands or big punches, and we both just barely missed each other. And like my brain reset for a second, and it was like, wow, we really just threw some real heat at each other. Next exchange, I better be on the better end of it, because I don't want to get hit. He was coming to take my life. You know what I mean? That's how I felt. So in a sense, I had to take his first.
So it's interesting because I've seen your kickboxing matches from Gladius, and I've seen your MMA fights from Gladius, and it's interesting because you're somebody who can engage and can feel really comfortable striking in close proximity, but you can also fight at a distance and move in a lot of directions at a lot of times. And you're also, very active with your kicks in kickboxing and MMA. And so what are some of the things that appeal to you about going down the BKFC path moving forward, at least in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think people hear bare knuckle and then they hear boxing, and they think that only the most pure boxers are going to do well. And then you see a lot of these guys that are real gritty, are real tough, or MMA veterans, kickboxers, that come in and they do very well, even though it's a boxing based fight. But it's not. There's a lot more different things that come to it. You don't have those boxing gloves on. You don't have that cushion. You don't have you know you don't have a lot of things that you do in the boxing world, as far as you get clinched up, you get broke. And bare knuckle, you get clinched up and this dude's decking you in your face still, you're going to continue to get hit, and it's up to you to get yourself out of that situation. Those are a lot of things that a lot of actual boxers don't experience. But ever since I started, ever since I was an amateur, but first couple fights coming up, I've been training with professional boxers, guys like that. So I always knew I would fare well. A lot of people just see, obviously, if you can kick somebody in the head, it's probably going to be more effective than if you can punch someone in the head, as far as your power goes. So that's why a lot of times, in my kickboxing fights, things like that, I'm trying to use the best weapons I have. But that doesn't mean I don't have other good weapons in my toolbox, So I'm a pretty solid boxer, from my own opinion, and from my experiences. I think I'll fare very well. A lot of these guys that are in the boxing world, they'll do well too, but it's a whole different ball game in there. It's a whole different sport. And I've got 15 seconds, 20 seconds worth of experience with it. So I'm not somebody to say a whole lot about it until I get in there. I want to get in there. I want to get, a full 5-round fight in the books. I want that experience. I don't care if I get busted up. I don't care if I break a hand. You know what I mean? I know what I sign up for. I know what I show up for. You know, whatever results happen or what happen, work hard and you should be successful. So we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see. Um, I would love to fight another technical striker. You know, the guy I just fought, he wasn't a technical striker. He was a guy that comes out to take your head off your shoulders from the very start.
Right.
You know, that's what happens sometimes. And that's the feel, you know, that's the from my different, you know, like you said, I fought MMA, I fought kickboxing time after time. That was my first bare knuckle. The feeling when you're in that ring, the toe into the line, you know, you're a foot away from each other when they say go instead of, you know, 20 feet across the cage. That's a big difference when they say go and now that guy's in your face to start and you're both fresh. It's a big difference. So that it's designed for them to want you to go out there and to bang with each other and to just throw down and somebody to get knocked out. That's what people want to see. People don't, you know, they don't turn into the UFC because they want to see the most technical fight. They want, you know, some people do on a martial artist aspect, but 90% of the people that tune in aren't a martial artist. They don't understand. They just want to see somebody get wrecked. And that's, you know, bare knuckle, the way they have their layout, it's beautifully set up to do that. But it's also a pretty big ring. So I'd like to get a fight in there where it's two technical strikers and I can really show how good my technique is against somebody. And that's what I'm looking for. That's the fights I want next. I want the big fights. I want the experienced guys. I want to be able to, you know, put on display, look what I can do without my kicks. Look what I can do without submissions. Look what I can do without this. You know, I can adapt to every single combat sport.
Right, and that's what like BKFC, you know, gets a lot of has a stigma about it for a lot, you know, several different reasons, and people will say different things about it, especially if they're not familiar. But I think a lot of the things that makes BKFC the most intriguing are changes to the circumstances of the fight that test a whole different set of skills. And you know, to your point about how you know, different striking skills translate between the different combat sports. I mean, look at a guy like Andre Ewell in the UFC, who is, I believe, 0-4 as a professional boxer, but I think he's one of the cleanest and most technical boxers that there is in MMA. For whatever reason, those skills translate better to mixed martial arts for him than they do to the pure boxing ring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. There's, you know, you might have that's another thing too with boxing. It's like, come on now, there's still an argument out there that Canelo isn't the greatest boxer, especially right now. He's definitely pound for pound number one, no questions about it. But it, you know, he's not undefeated. There's people like, it's that loss. It's that loss. That guy could have gone, you know, he could have won the next 30 fights in his career and been 30-4. And people wouldn't consider him anything, even though he's on a 30-fight win streak, because boxing is just so weird with the losses. You get one loss and your whole world comes crashing down. MMA, you get one loss, you bounce back and win a decision, and you're right back on top. You don't even have to have a big finish. Same thing with kickboxing. You know, you see guys with 100 fights, and they might be 70-30 or you know, 80-20 or something, and they're still a fighter that is super respected. If you had a boxer that had 30 losses on his record, people are just going to look at them as a scrub, as an easy fight. And I think a lot of bare knuckle guys are like that, you know. There was one guy on the card, he was telling me, you know, it was great too in the back room. You know, they hooked us up. They had a big screen in the back, you know, surround sound going. So it was nice because you could see these guys. You know, I'm in a room. I went from fighting on shows that I was the main guy. You know what I mean? I was the guy that won all the belts on the show as an amateur, came up in the pro ranks. And now the guys that are on my undercard are making their first or second amateur fight or, you know, that type of show versus now I'm the guy that's opening the pay-per-view and I'm fighting underneath the heavyweight champions of the world as the main event. And you're sitting in the back room with those guys. And it just lets you know that, you know, it's kind of a surreal thing where, you know, that's just another person. You know, I'm talking to this guy and literally 3 minutes later, he's out in the ring throwing punches. It kind of just lets you know that, yes, this is the biggest, it's a huge deal. But at the same time, we're all the same people. and we're here with the same task in mind. And I don't know, it was really cool. It was just the greatest experience ever. And I made a lot of good connections with a lot of people out there. So I'm looking to just make the most of it and start getting those lots, things like that, you know.
Definitely think the most was made of it. I mean, a huge highlight moment for you to win the fight. And, the thing about BKFC is, you could, develop a pro MMA record of, 15-4 and pay your dues for years on a regional circuit before you might, in different circumstances, before you sniff a chance at a big Bellator fight or a UFC debut or the Contender Series or what have you. But BKFC, look, like you said, you opened up the pay-per-view a night where the heavyweight championship for BKFC was on the line. And not only that, BKFC has gotten a lot of the athletes on the BKFC roster have very big social media followings. And they've signed people strategically well that have brought attention to the organization.
Yep. I couldn't agree more with that too. And they're signing a lot of big fighters, you know. They just signed Mike Perry. They signed Chad Mendes. You know, those are, I don't know what weight they're coming to. I think Perry's going to 175. And Mendes, I would assume, is going 45, but he might be going 55. I saw 55 champ called him out. But, those are fights that maybe Mendes doesn't get that fight. And maybe, I win the next 3 of them. I do really well. And now, next thing you know it, I'm 25 years old and I'm fighting Chad Mendes, who at one time challenged for the UFC title, 3 or 4 times against the world's greatest fighters. Like, that's where I could see myself in a year from now. And it's insane to think about.
Vision.
It's the greatest thing you can ever imagine. And you go in there and you beat a guy like Chad Mendes. Holy shit. You know what I mean? What is that going to do to somebody's career?
That's it. I mean, it's great that you see, a path like that in your head that you can visualize, because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. But that's your reality now. And I'm glad you were discussing where different people might land weight wise, because during your amateur MMA career, you were the Gladius Fights featherweight and lightweight amateur champion at different points. I believe you had fought at the 150-pound catch weight a couple times in your amateur career. And then I believe this BKFC fight was at 160. You're technically listed on BKFC's page as a welterweight. So is that still something that's being figured out? Do you see yourself being able to transition every once in a while if that's what you feel comfortable doing? What's the plan there?
I do. I see myself, I was just talking with one of my coaches, Jeff Knox, the other day. And it's like, man, I used to almost, weight cutting it's definitely a problem. But I used to almost die trying to make 145 to fight as an amateur. And it was getting way too hard on my body at that time. And I was so young, I was fighting when I'm 16, 17, 18. My body's still, growing at a pretty rapid rate at that point, especially as far as, muscle development and things like that. So I bumped up to 155, and then I felt good at 155 for a while. And then it was like, man, 55 is starting to get kind of hard to cut to as well. And then, we had this long break. I, didn't fight for almost 3 years, whatever the case was. And I matured a lot mentally. I matured a lot to where I realized that there's a lot more about the fight than just the fight. So, my lifestyle changed a lot. Now I'm sitting there talking with my coaches and I'm like, man, if a big fight really pops up at 145 and the offer comes, man, this cut to 160 was smooth. Like, it was super smooth. I literally woke up in the morning. Weigh-ins were at 10 o'clock. I didn't even wake up until, probably 7:30 that morning. And I got up, took a hot bath for, 20 minutes, laid under some towels, and I was on weight. Like, that was the easiest weight cut of my life.
Damn.
I've just so much in my preparation, and my discipline has doubled from what it was. Like, yes, it was hard to make 145 when I was, I used to walk around at 148, and then I got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I had to cut, and it was too hard. 55, same thing. But now it's like I used to blow up in between my fights, carefree, eat whatever you want, those things. Now it's like, okay, it's 3 days after the fight and I'm back on a diet. I'm eating venison every day. Like, I'm back in the gym. I'm doing cardio right away. I'm staying in shape all year round. And I'm trying to just work on my overall health and fitness to where if something comes up at 145, maybe I'm used to walking around, well over 170. I'll put that out there. And 145 will be a challenge. Maybe I stay disciplined and I get myself to where I'm walking around at 165 now, and 145 is not an impossible cut. And it's not a cut that's going to hinder my health too badly to where I can't compete, to where I can't perform the way I want to. So maybe something comes at 145. Maybe I make a run down there. Something comes at 55, make a run there. Maybe somebody pulls out. Like I told those guys, I wanted on the Miami card if something happened to somebody out there. Yes, it was only 1 week after my fight, but I came out, my hands were good. I wasn't cut up. I wasn't all beat to shit. You know what I mean? And I had just had, like I said, 3 years off. I'm ready to go. I want to get out there. I want to start fighting everybody. I want to fill my bank account up. I want to grow everything as fast as I can. If I'm good to fight, why am I not fighting? You know what I mean? Why am I not fighting if I'm in shape and I'm good to go? There's no need for me to take 3 months off, 4 months off for my next fight. Get me right back in there. I wanted them to send me a plane ticket. I told them, you guys got my number, call me if you need me to show up. And that's the thing where 145, sure, I need a long camp for that, but I'll show up and I'll wreck somebody at 145. Give me a 55 or give me 165 on short notice. You guys got somebody that pulls out, sure, let's go 165 and I'll bump up another 5 pounds for my last one and I'll show up at 165 on a week's notice and I'll be as ready to go as ever, So that's what I like about bare knuckle too. You don't see guys in the UFC doing that a whole lot. You've seen it a little bit here and there, but it's very rare. But bare knuckle, you might see a guy fight 55 and the next show he might fight 75. You never know. It's all about matchups. I'm pretty sure their last card there, Miami, was the 35 champ versus the 55 champ. So
and yeah, happen. It's funny you mentioned like that, because I just thought, like, in the UFC, there's been several people in the last year that have taken huge advantage of that weight versatility and being able to take opportunities at a moment's notice. And then the big question, whether they can cash in on it. But, it's a great characteristic for getting your foot in the door and for being able to take opportunities. Because I can't imagine if you're somebody waiting for one of those opportunities and it's like, can you get to 155 by Friday? It's like, I don't think I can. It's like, well, it's going to someone else then.
Exactly. And that shouldn't be a thing. You know what I mean? That's where people are way too stuck on how much somebody weighs. And I mean, it makes a big difference. Don't get me wrong. But, if this guy's went through a camp and where our walk around weight is roughly the same, I just didn't have that camp. Now you want me to stress my body out completely to do you guys the favor to step in to fight this guy when he's just refusing to, bump up a weight class so that, we can make the fight happen. A lot of shows don't do that, but bare knuckle seems to be very reasonable. Those things they understand. I think they understand from the fighter's aspect a little bit more. And they know that, hey, why would we want this guy to deplete his body? Some guys are taking fights on short notice like that, and they're 180 pounds, and somehow they make it down to 155 in 2 weeks. That's insane. That's not good for your body. And that guy shows up, and now he doesn't perform at his best abilities. Don't you want a guy to show up and fight his hardest? Well, if you want a guy to fight his hardest, you want him to be his healthiest too. So I think they understand that, and that those are things that can happen all the time. You might never see me fight 155, 155, 155. It might be 55, 65, 45, 55. And I'm okay with that until, we make some noise and they go, okay, this kid can really, be a contender here, but at what weight and where do I feel comfortable the most? I might be able to make 45, but 165 might be where I perform the best. And wherever I perform the best is where I want to compete at. We just haven't figured that out yet because we don't have that ring experience in bare knuckle yet.
And so, speaking of which, I mean, are you waiting for a phone call on this topic, or do you have a plan of when in general you'd like to fight? Do you have a name in mind for maybe someone you want to fight next? What's the state of the planning there?
Yeah, I don't really get too stuck on, what people do I want to fight and things like that. It's whoever. Like I said, I told them I got next. That means everybody, whoever you guys got for me, at the end of the day, it's up to my management, Dodge Sports, and they're working on big things for me right now. So I don't have a date in mind. Like I said, I want to get in there. So if they say, hey, we got you something for Tampa in December, bare knuckle. Okay, cool. Who do you got? What do we got? And then we'll go from there. And there's a little bit of rumors floating around about, maybe bare knuckle, if, maybe they're coming back to New York in a reasonable time. So maybe we'll wait around for that and have another epic showing there. And maybe they'll go, okay, maybe we'll throw this kid on a co-main or whatever. I don't care. You can put me as the first fight on the prelims. I obviously want to fight at home as much as I can. And now it's like home isn't just Elmira, New York. It's the whole state of New York. So wherever the fight comes in New York, if it comes back soon, that's what I want the most. And hopefully a little bit of a longer fight to display some of my skills and, really make a statement, because anybody can go in there. Don't get me wrong. It couldn't have gone any better for me the way my fight went, but anybody can do it. Anybody can get lucky. And I don't want people thinking that's luck. That wasn't luck. That was literally years and years and years. I've been training since I was 15 years old. Like, that was years of a buildup of throwing that same punch probably a million times. Like, that wasn't, a lucky shot. That was a shot that was, that was pure on the button precision. Everything you can do to throw that perfect check hook was there. And it was so fast, some people didn't even know what happened. And I have to literally like slow the video down and show them. And they're like, oh, wow. Like, that
On
was
the money.
on the money. Yeah, on the money. Couldn't get any better. But in a sense, to some people, it looks like these guys were just exchanging punches and one guy got the worst end of it and went down. That was going to happen regardless with whoever it was going to be in front of me. It might have just taken a little bit longer if the guy didn't come out so fire blazing at me. It might have just taken a little longer, but it was bound to happen eventually. And I have those faith in my skills that I truly believe in that.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like those BKFC exchanges is they do look like that to people that are not familiar with the product, but it has to be studied on a micro level in bursts of 3 seconds is how those fights have to be broken down. So whenever the next fight does happen, why will you be a better fighter than you were in the first fight?
Because that's, better than I was in the first fight compared to where I'll be in my next fight. That's just because how hard I will have worked in between these camps. Like, every single time I fight, I literally feel like I could have destroyed myself. The person that I was in that last fight, I look at that and I'm like, man, the way I feel now, I'd go in there and I would beat myself. If I had to clone myself back then to now, I'm knocking myself out the way I train now. So it's like everything I do as far as training goes, we don't change a whole lot up, but there's a whole lot that I was lacking before that I'm starting to make up for now. So just as I'm just working on being a better athlete, getting stronger, mentally, just being tougher in all aspects. And I think those are the reasons to why you'll see me be better. I used to go into my fights with that mental aspect. And any fighter out there that's listening to this shit that wants to lie and say that they don't experience these things, they're bullshitting for the media. If you don't go into a fight and you're not nervous, you're not scared, that ref looks at you and he says, are you ready to go? And you shake your head, yes, but really you're thinking in your head, I'm fuck that. Get me out of here. Why did I sign up for this shit? Especially as an amateur. You might be in there as a pro and you're making some money. You're putting a couple grand, a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, whatever the case may be in your pocket. Okay, yeah, I'm ready to go. But there's still a little itch in there that is telling you somewhere, I'm putting my life on the line right here. Am I really ready to go? Why did I sign up for this shit? That sort of thing is going out the window with me. Now it's like I'm getting in there. I'm not saying that's every fight. I'm saying that's like you've experienced that at one point in time, whether you were fighting as an amateur or what, those thoughts go through your head. Now it's getting to the point where I'm getting in there and it's like, are you ready? It's like, hell yeah, I'm ready. I'm about to go out there and do everything in my power to beat this guy down because he's standing in the way of what I want. And if I don't, he's going to beat me down because I'm standing in the way of what he wants. And it's like, I got my whole family here. I got people tuning in, everybody around the world that's watching. Sure, that's cool. But those people, their opinions, that doesn't mean anything to me. What their reactions are, that doesn't mean anything to me. But if I go out there and I get knocked out in front of my mother, in front of my father, in front of my, my family, my friends, everybody that I've known since, preschool that shows up to my fights to still support me, those are the people I don't want to lose for. And this guy wants to, embarrass me, cut me up, bust me up, knock me out in front of those people. That's not happening. That's what's going through my head. So I got to blow through that guy first. And that's what's starting to happen with me now. So I'm in there to actually start hurting people, not just win the fight.
Matt Babyface Phillips coming off a round 1 knockout victory over Derek Greene in his BKFC debut. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And I know you have to get going, but before you go, anybody you want to shout out, anything you want to say, anything you want people to know about you, the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. And obviously there's a ton of people I'm going to miss, but, like I've been saying, everybody from the start, I've got roughly 30 fights under me now, and only a handful of them are professional. So it takes a lot for people to stick around that long. Everybody that supported me since, my amateur debut, a lot of my longtime sponsors, BJ's Taxi, Turtle Leaf Cafe, Steve's Body Shop, a lot of these places, my newest sponsor, K2 Sauce, like these guys, every little bit helps get you down the road. And we didn't grow up super rich. Like those sponsorships, those things, they help. You might get an amateur show that offers you, a tiny bit of your ticket sales as an amateur to get you to show up. Those little bits help. They help buy gloves. They help do things. And now look at us now. I couldn't be more grateful for these guys. All the training partners throughout the years that have helped me get to where I'm at. A lot of these guys are now moved away. They're across the country. They're doing big things with their fighting careers, and all my coaches, especially Jeff Knox, I couldn't thank him enough. He's been under my wing I've been under his wing for, a handful of years now, and we're undefeated together. So hoping to keep that going. And there's a lot of people I got to be thankful for. So anybody out there that I missed, I didn't miss you. I still think about it, and I'm grateful for everybody.
Well, best of luck and health to you leading up to your next fight, man, and all of your training. Matt Babyface Phillips, everybody. Great to have him on the show. That was a great conversation. Folks, thank you for listening to Rotoballer's official MMA podcast, Tap That, another interlude episode. This has been Brady Grove, and UFC's off next week. So we're gonna, this might be coming out that the very week I'm talking about. Who knows? But we'll be back to business as usual as soon as the UFC starts back up. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your week.